Welcome. Today's video is going to cover a new rod that I just got from Bait Finesse Empire. It is the Jackson Kawasemi Rhapsody. It's a 4'7" telescopic rod. It's going to be pretty good, I think, for the streams, the tight streams that I fish in. So if you want to see info on that, keep watching. I also got some other lures and stuff I'll go over, but the main focus is going to be on the rod. Very small telescopic rod. So if you want to see more info, keep watching. Also comment down below if you want to see more BFS content. See how this backbone is actually. Alright, so getting into it, this is the rod. I do have my, right here, I have my, for comparison's sake, this is my Daiwa Silver Creek AGS. It's a 5'2" rod. Look how much smaller this case is. And this is a 4'7" rod, so it is a little bit shorter rod, but the telescopic makes it a lot smaller. Generally for me, I don't really care to have telescopic rods, just because a lot of times the tapers can be really flat and the rods are really tip heavy. With the rod, I know that Jackson makes some really good rods, and just kind of looking at the specs and everything online, there's very little videos on this rod, but just looking for what I can see, it seems like it's going to be a pretty good option. Let me move these lures I got and stuff. I'll move this to the side for now. Okay, I will be putting the Daiwa Silver Creek on there just to see how it is. Okay, so now opening up the rod. It comes in a, let me take the paperwork out of here. And that, okay. So inside the rod case, you can see that it's secured in there, and there's also on this side right here, there's a neoprene tip cover, and I'm going to go over what that's for. So getting into the rod, you take it out of this case. There's two little hook and loop fasteners on there. All right, so now that it's out of the package, something for me that I think is going to be really nice is obviously being able to keep your rod and reel and everything all rigged up, and still without having to, you know, if you want to break your rod down, especially a two-piece rod, a lot of times you have to you know, take your lure off and everything to store it. Or you have to kind of pull your rod tip over and kind of secure it alongside of itself, which can be kind of, I don't know, not really ideal for me. How this seems pretty nice, and there is also a cutout here as well. I'll get a close-up. I'll get some close-ups of these things I'm talking about. But you can keep your line coming straight through, and there's a hook keeper right there on the bottom. Conveniently, right at the bottom of the rod sleeve that's there. So taking the rod sleeve off. I'll keep this off for the duration of the time. It is a little tricky getting this out of here. Probably help if I undid it all the way. There we go. All right, so one thing that's odd, if you can see, all the guides are kind of stacked up right here. And what that is, these are floating guides. So it's a 4-piece telescopic rod. So there's only 4 pieces that come out. So it's not, you know, what, nine pieces or whatever that would look like. And what that's going to do is, I'll just show you here. So this first guide here, look at this guide is moving up and down, and what that does is it kind of pressure fits into place. So you'd line up this guide here, and kind of pressure fit it into place, and it seems like it could be pretty snug, and I don't think that would really twist under load. It might. I'll of course find that out when I start catching fish with it, but from what I'm seeing, it doesn't seem like it would. I did play with this a little bit beforehand. It's not a true unboxing. Something that I wanted to do is make sure that I can kind of talk some of these features, which I know I saw a lot of them online, but getting it in hand, it just makes it a little bit smoother process for the viewer. All right, so from what I've gathered looking at this, there's 3, well, there's 4, it's a 4-piece, so there's 3 distinct like parts that come out, right? So there's going to be certain guides when I'm lining everything up, and this would be a lot easier to line up too if you already have line on here. Say if you're, you know, you hook it up at home and you go out into the woods or streams or wherever and start, you know, assembling your rod. It just as easy as getting all this extended. So what I've noticed is there's only 2 guides that are fixed into place, which is good because which one of those is the tip top. So once you have all those lined up when you're extending it, all the other ones just kind of fall into place. You just, you know, put them down, you know, twist it, make sure that they're even, and just keep going down like that, and you're all set. I mean, let me see how straight these are. Oh, they did pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I think I can move the tip over a little bit. There we go. But then you're ready to fish. And then when you're done, you can just collapse it all down. Kind of took me a little bit to see where the joints are. I thought it was going to be more fragile than it is, but it actually comes all the way down. And then all those guides would stay lined up. You know, the hook keeper being here, all the guides would stay lined up. And when you go to extend it, you just, you know, extend it out. All right, so for the specs, it's 4'7" long when it's fully deployed. It's 19.7 inches when it's fully collapsed, which is really, really small. And if you do some backwoods hiking, or even keeping in you know, as a car rod, it doesn't take up very much space at all. And the case is really robust too. So I mean, you can slide that right in the side of a backpack or something like that, or even just, you know, keep it in your car. Actually, I do want to see if a reel, this is kind of a big case, like width-wise. I want to see if a reel would fit in there. I really hope so, because I mean, if you're going to make it that wide, you may as well make it a little bit wider to get the reel in there. So for the lure rating, it's rated up to 8 grams. It doesn't have a minimum lure rating. So that's about a 1/4 ounce, which is a lot of your, you know, I'd say a lot of like your 60 size or 65 size minnows if you use those. Let me see how this backbone is actually before I start talking about that stuff. I actually got some backbone. It's definitely not as stiff. It kind of fits setup wise. I don't have my my Silver Creek 5'2" light powered AGS, but this rod power wise fits between that rod, which is kind of a fairly stiff rod, and this is the Surinor Aries, which is one of my favorite brook trout rods. The only thing I don't like about this rod is its lack of backbone. If I'm getting into a little bit bigger trout, or if I'm around a lot of heavy cover, sometimes those fish can take off and I can't really control them. And with the rod bending so close to the butt like this, really my fulcrum point of lifting the fish is way down here. So it kind of effectively shortens the lever you have on the fish. So with this being this Jackson rod being a little bit faster action rod, let me make sure, yeah. Being a little bit faster action rod, I can control those fish a little bit better. The tip is still light. This isn't going to be like the ideal small brook trout rod, but it'll still work, especially if you're fishing those areas where you have some brown trout or even bigger brook trout mixed in. Now, cosmetically, it actually kind of reminds me of a brook trout, kind of with like some of those browns and oranges and the blue and white. Looks pretty nice cosmetically. The reel seat's it's a little bit big. It's not uncomfortable, and it's pretty much like the Ray's Tenru series. I fished a Spectra for a little bit, and it kind of feels like that in hand. Another thing is the handle. I do want to measure that. That's one thing for me when I'm looking for stream rods. I don't like to have a really long handle. It kind of just throws me off, and it kind of gets caught up on your arm, especially in the colder weather when you're wearing a jacket. Measurement wise, let me see here. From trigger to butt is 4 7/8 of an inch. So that's definitely acceptable. And for me, I mean, I don't know if people will see that. I'll turn my arms sideways, but it doesn't seem like it would hang up at all for me. And something too that's kind of welcome. It has cork handles. It's going to look shiny because it has plastic on there, but the back of it is it's a rubberized cork, but it's a lot less grippy than most rubberized corks. So that's not going to grab on your shirt much. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt right now, and I know sometimes with rods, not really the Aries, but sometimes the rubberized butt on the back can grab on your shirt, which can be a little annoying at times. So I think that that cork composite isn't going to be a big deal. Quality cork looks okay. It's not like super, it's not like 5A Portuguese grade, but it's pretty good cork. I'm not usually a fan of cork rods, but it just kind of makes sense on a trout rod, and I'm not really too picky about it. The rod having a hook keeper is actually really nice. A lot of times JDM rods or any trout rods, they don't have hook keepers, which is really annoying to me. So I have to put it on my reel, or something like that, and it kind of messes with when you put a reel cover on. But that's really nice, and it's still there when the rod is collapsed. So if I collapse this rod all the way down, I'm able to still have my lure on there, and just make sure all my slacks lined up, and then all I have to do is just loosen up my drag or unhook my lure and let line out, and I can extend that out and be able to fish in no time. Especially there's some areas where it's super brushy, tag elder, I mean, you name it, thistle. any spruce brush, anything. And having a rod out, even that Surinor Aries, which is also 4'7", I have to kind of choke up on the rod like this, and I'm walking through and I still get hung up. So being able to compress that is going to be really, really beneficial for me when I'm doing some backwoods hiking. The taper, again, I'll go to the taper. From what I'm seeing, there is not really too much of a flat spot. I think it's just an optical illusion for me maybe, but it's like right here it looks like there might be a flat spot, but I think it just depends on the angle that I'm bending. If I'm bending it to like a fast angle, it doesn't look quite as smooth of a taper, but it looks still nice, and it gives me a little bit more backbone to control fish. Using this with jigs, I wouldn't hesitate using this thing with jigs. Obviously, minnow baits is what I use most of. The carbon content of this rod, it's 98% carbon, 2% glass, so it's pretty much going to act like a carbon rod. So those flip casts that you see a lot of people do, I like a glass rod for that, but I don't have to flip cast with every single cast. A lot of people do it just to do it. I like to do it when it's functional. Most times this is underneath cover and such, but especially with this being how this tip is with the 8-gram rating, I bet you can get into that taper pretty good to get some flip casts. Yeah, so with this rod, it's definitely going to be, for me, that one rod I can bring out. I can have some backbone to handle a little bit bigger trout, and also be able to fish jigs because of that carbon. And it feels like a fairly sensitive rod, just doing simple tests. Like I could tap up on the wall, and it does feel nice. And then also, if it has enough give for those trout baits, which I'll find out. So I'll probably run monofilament on here. I more than likely won't run braid. I think between the taper of the rod, the power, and using braid, it's going to be kind of too much, I think, for some smaller trout. So I'll probably run the bush, VARIVAS bush trail on here, just because if I am hiking into backwoods areas, I think I want a line that's very durable, and I just like bush trail. It's been my favorite trout line, monofilament wise, for sure. All right, so overall with this rod, are some really good things, and those floating guides are a really weird feature, but they seem like they're going to work. A company like Jackson, I don't think they're just going to like fly with the seam of their pants and do something without testing it. And it seems like it's going to be a really good rod for that, to fit that void that I had in my lineup for quite a bit, that between the Surinor Aries and then that Silver Creek AGS rod. So it's going to be nice, just functionality for me. But I think it is going to be a pretty versatile rod, especially if you're only going to have one rod. Of course, I'm not going to know that until I go out on the water. I don't want to mislead anybody about like, oh, this is the best rod ever. I think it's going to be good, but I don't know until I get it on the water. So this is available at Bait Finesse Empire. They're retailing right now for $290, which is pretty competitive if you're trying to buy it overseas, but after shipping and everything like that, it comes out about the same. So I am excited to get this out. I will be doing some more BFS footage. I also, like I said, I'll be putting this on the Silver Creek reel. It just kind of just seems like it cosmetically goes together pretty good. And also, I do want to get a little bit more testing with this reel. So it just kind of makes sense that way. I'll put some monofilament on there and see how it goes. So if you like these BFS videos, comment down below what you like about them, and be sure to subscribe. Thanks.